Hello and welcome to What We're Watching. It's Katherine.
And Liz.
And Ed.
And John.
Okay, so we're going to start off with me.
Ooh,
I am watching season 2 of Reacher. Nobody else is watching it?
That is on John and I's list of co-watching things, and it has not made it to the top of the list yet, but it's probably very soon.
We watched season 1, so it's basically exactly the same. Or
it's completely not. Yeah. Okay, so it's based on a really extensive series of books, which I did not read or, in my case, listen to because I'm a big audio book person.
they're pretty similar.
Have you read them?
I've read a couple.
Okay, nice. All right, so the first season I really liked. John, we watched it together or started watching it together and then somehow fell apart and then I watched it by myself.
That's a good recap. Yeah, you guys. I think you guys did stop, and then I finished it by myself, and then separately, Ed and I then started and watched it with our nephew William.
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
And I have not watched it at all.
Here's what you need to know. Reacher, which was also a movie series with Tom Cruise.
Yes.
I don't know how many there were of that. This is the same source material, but a different Reacher.
Yeah, there's just one movie, right, John?
There's 2 movies.
With Tom Cruise?
With Tom Cruise.
Oh.
And they're both very good. But what you haven't said is the size of the 2 Reachers is very different. And unfortunately for Tom, he is the inaccurate version. He's supposed to be 6'6".
Tom is short?
Wait, Tom, you don't know that Tom
I'm
Cruise?
joking.
Okay, all right. Wow.
I mean, just in
for a
sense,
second, that read was really good, Liz, 'cause
I-
I bought it completely.
I remember the controversy coming out when Reacher was announced, the movie, and it was Tom Cruise. People were outraged just because in the book he's described as this very intimidating, large, bulking character.
He's basically an unstoppable force.
Right.
Whatever. The movies were good with Tom.
But Tom can sell anything.
He can.
He did.
He did. Well, in this case, the TV series or the streaming series, it's on Amazon Prime Video.
Okay.
So it stars Alan Ritchson, and he is a big man.
Ooh.
I mean, I think he is 6'6", if not 6'4", he's and just humongous.
And you are
Very
not
large.
watching this with your husband.
No, I don't know. I mean, we did
interesting.
start watching the first season together, but then he wasn't that into it. So then I
But
watched
you're
it.
into it now.
Well-
Oh my God! I just looked at pictures of him.
He's only 6'3". Take it easy.
He's only 6'3". No, and he's a gorgeous specimen of a man. Very handsome.
I can see why you're into it, Katherine.
Well, it's not even that.
Ooh.
He's very good. All right,
That's got to be a
well,
factor.
It's a little bit of a
Yeah,
factor.
that's part of it for sure, honey.
But okay,
he's
so
married. Everybody calm down.
He's and also on social media, he seems like a complete delight. Like
Okay.
he seems really nice and lovely and funny, and so there's even that element as well. But in the series, season 1, which I guess was based on the first book, great.
I believe so, yes.
Okay, thank you, John, for confirmation there. It was great. I loved the support cast, and then when they ended, I was like, well, how are we going to have another series with these support characters? Oh, we're not. Oh.
Yeah, we understood that from the movies, though.
Yeah, but I didn't.
Well,
So I was like, I'm just going to get all of these great characters in every season. No, you're not. So I think it's kind of interesting. I did look it up that season 2 is based on the 11th book.
Yeah, I just saw that. That was like the first one is the debut novel, 1997. And the second season is 2007.
Yeah, what? We really skip a dude forward to book 11. All right, so this is Lee Child's series. Season 2 is based on book 11 called Bad Luck and Trouble.
Wait a minute. Are
What?
they in New York City?
They're in New York City.
Wow.
For real, or are they in Toronto?
Oh, I don't know. Probably Toronto.
Didn't he go to New York in the first season? That was a real fun little escapade.
Oh
that
my
he
God,
had.
I don't remember.
What?
I'm sorry.
Remember? He bought a suit that was an NFL player that never showed up, and then it got ruined immediately.
Oh my God, I do remember it now.
Yeah, exactly.
I should have done.
It was hard to tell between all the spy shows and the one suit wearing for like 5 weeks at a time shows that we were watching, John.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So the series was developed by Nick Santora, and it's really, really fun. I am enjoying season 2. I'm about halfway through. It's a whole new cast of characters. It actually is a little bit different storytelling too, because there's some flashback stuff because he's gotten back together with his special investigative unit. So they're kind of telling the original story of how they got together and the cases that they were working on in the olden times, and then their current case that brings them all back together because some bad stuff's happening. So no spoilers, so I won't ruin it, especially since you two are going to watch it. Now that you've seen him, you should watch it.
I am tempted to watch it just based on
you could just watch
the
it by
shirtless
yourself.
photo I just saw of him online.
Yeah,
He's a
it's
very
pretty stunning.
respectful man, and he's very well built. So this is one you could watch with Ethan. He could learn things from this human.
Okay.
How to take care of other people. How to build muscle mass, maybe.
And not eating beef jerky when you're in a stakeout.
No, don't eat beef jerky on a stakeout.
Is he shirtless on a good portion of this?
There's a little
Not at
bit.
all. What?
Well, there was a little bit.
Okay.
Not a ton.
I think it
I mean, they don't. He's just so big and like
Tight shirts.
Yeah, he's
Okay,
just.
okay.
That's not part of his character to be like sexy. He's just giant.
He just is sexy.
He can't help it.
Okay,
He
got
can't
it.
help it. Okay. So this season, the cast of characters around him are this reconstructed special investigative unit that he's working with. And that cast is great. There's about 4 of them that are like kind of working together as the core of it. So we do have one recurring character from season 1 that's in this group that he's working with, the special investigators that we had met in season 1. And that's Maria Sten. And then we have Serinda Swan, who is part of that group, and there's a little bit of chemistry with this character, so that's kind of fun. And then also Sean Sipos is in that core group. And then we have a real fun character, this NYPD detective played by Dominic Lambardozzi, who I mean, I recognized immediately from like 1,000 things. He's very fun in this. He's extremely annoyed with this group because their approach to investigating is a lot of rule breaking and law breaking, and he is not into it at all. So, because they're kind of trying to solve the same murder/crime.
It's like
thing.
every captain or detective in a New York squad.
Because they don't work for him, obviously. They're just like a bunch of private eyes, kind of. And
Wait a minute. They don't work for him?
No.
I don't work for you.
Oh. Oh, okay. And our bad guy this season, we've got Robert Patrick.
Oh, Terminator.
Terminator 2, right? Isn't he our Terminator 2 guy?
He's
Yeah.
the T2000.
He's the T2000.
Polymimetic alloy.
Oh, wow.
version.
Okay.
Whatever. That was all over the information for that movie, Terminator 2, back in the day. You have to
Back
know
in the
what-
day.
What was he up against? The Terminator's back, but he's good? I don't understand.
Wow, Ed. You obtained all that.
That's amazing. All right. So he's great and very menacing in this. And we also have a for hire assassin who's a real chameleon character, like playing all these different, like using all these different names and accents. And he's great. That's Fernando Kingsley. Anyway, the whole thing's great. I can't wait for you guys to watch it. And then we could talk more about it. And Liz, get on it. Because this Alan Richson,
I'm intrigued.
He's real good. He's real good. Okay. So next up for me was the movie Rebel Moon.
Yeah, John and I both watched that.
Oh, okay, great. Okay.
It's on my list.
Oh, it's on your list. All right, great. So this is a movie on Netflix directed by Zack Snyder. So it's very action-y. I started watching it with Eric, and I hate to keep reporting on Eric like dropping out of things, but my husband sometimes is not that into it, and then he doesn't care how it ends, where even if I don't love something, I will still want to finish it just to see how the story plays out or what they were going for, whatever it is. But he's just like, I'm fine.
See, you're the data analysis that Netflix is like losing their minds over in the same household, or all streamers, because it's, what is it, retention and completion?
Yeah, he is
Which sounds sexual, but
Yeah.
it's not. So basically, the data is, does someone start a show and finish it all the way to completion? Once again, I'm saying sexual, and I don't mean to. So Eric is the one that starts it. They can't retain him. He's out. You, no matter what, want to go to completion.
Yeah, even if I don't love it, I'll still finish.
They need new terms. This is not sounding, I'm trying, this is their terminology, and I sound like inappropriate. But yeah, so you're what they love, because even if you leave it in your continued watching box, you are feeling like you need to go back and finish it. I am that way about 50% of the time. I mean, once again, there's a joke line there, but I'm just going to ignore it. So, so I think that that's interesting that you feel like you're their dream subscriber. You want to finish, whereas other people really do, because now there's so much content. You know,
They'll
and
just
also
drop
like,
off, yeah.
what are you in the mood for tonight? You know, it's sort of like, are you in the mood for reality? Are you in the mood for like sci-fi, drama, Hallmark? Like, there's so much to absorb. And if you are like us, we watch a lot of television. So sometimes, you know, like The Crown, I love The Crown, but it can almost put me to sleep. So there are times I'm like, because they'll have whole sequences of like the most beautiful music, no dialogue.
You're like, good night.
I have woken up on my bed and the laptop. I'm like, what happened? My God. And you know, there's jumping of ages. So I'm like, Harry's twice the size. Like, so
What happened?
you gotta go back. So, all right. So that I think is funny. So he started with you and did not.
Correct.
They did not retain him.
No.
To completion.
No. I think we got about more than 20 minutes. I think we were at least at the half hour, maybe at the 45-minute mark.
Lucky
and he
girl.
Was like,
All right. We gotta get back on track.
so anyway, he left. Very nice.
Stop. Okay. I've got to like reboot my brain. This
Yeah,
retention
you're
and
like
completion.
turning into a 12-year-old boy. Okay, so I did watch the entire movie, and first of all, it's part 1. I guess there's going to be a part 2. So you guys both watched it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, what's the first one called? It's like Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire, which seems like kind of a long name. Is that the official name? Do we think that that's right?
Yeah, that's the official full title.
All right. I mean, I don't know
You
if we
should
need a
let
part.
Zach
Why
know
part
your
1?
thoughts, because there's a part 2 coming. Would you stop?
Okay.
Just get ready
all
for
right.
April with part 2. It'll be
Oh,
fun.
that's quick.
I know. Wasn't it kind of long though? Why didn't you just do it as a limited series? Because that's a different category. You want to do 2 movies instead of a 4-part or 5-part limited series?
Much more prestigious to do movies than
Okay.
it is to do a multi-part series. Plus, also then you aren't sharing the directorship. They're definitely going to split up some directing if you're doing 4 parts. They're like, well, we're going to give one of the actors a shot.
Oh, you
and the
are
producer
right.
would like a turn.
That's probably actually very true. All right. So part 2 is The Scar Giver. That's the next installment. Part 2. It is a lot of big world building. It's like a sci-fi opera, not really Star Warsy, but in the, big story, a lot of meeting different characters and going to different planets. And there was a lot going on. As a side note of the cast, we got narration by Anthony Hopkins. And I think that was the device that they were trying to use to like explain a lot of stuff, which I guess I was like, I don't really need to know what outpost we're on or what planet this is, but I mean, there was a lot of
You might.
there was a lot of explaining
We'll see.
of stuff. Maybe it was not necessary for me, but I don't know. What did you guys think about that?
There's theoretically maybe a trilogy, and then there's a trilogy of trilogies, possibly. So there's big ideas happening, is my point.
Wow. I did hear that part 2, so okay.
I'm
could
sorry,
be
a trilogy of sequels. I got the quote wrong.
got
Trilogy of sequels.
a trilogy of sequels.
Yeah.
So how many is
Here's
that?
the-
I've lost count. Is
the
that
point is, it is a space opera. There's going to be a lot. You need all this information.
okay? Space,
space opera.
I know, or space epic, or
I
don't
like
know.
space opera. So
I mean, that's a term
not
that people
a
use.
soap opera.
No.
but a space opera. Oh.
Whoa, that seems negative. It's just a space opera. That's a good thing.
Are there 2 brothers fighting over one woman, both married to her? They're not sure whose child she's pregnant with.
We basically just got the prologue, so we haven't got to that part.
Yeah, but that's real soap opera-y.
You need that in a soap
Well,
opera.
that's why I like, instead of a space opera, which makes me think of soap opera, I like space epic because that makes it sound like just a huge, expansive story. No?
I think
don't know.
the opera is what's throwing you off, and that's why Star Wars goes with saga.
Oh,
Because it's a
saga.
long ass drama, and we don't know when it's going to end and who's going to win. We're paying attention for a long time to the story. It's
never
saga.
going to end.
Okay.
Never.
Exactly.
So cast-wise, it stars Sophia Boutelle, who I know, I mean, she's done a bunch of stuff, but specifically from the Tom Cruise Mummy,
yeah.
The Mummy. How is Tom Cruise just like getting all over this podcast? What's going on?
I mean, more importantly, the Kingsman.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
With her freaking knife legs.
Yeah, I forgot that was her.
assassin feet, yeah.
Okay. All right. So, yep, that's her. So
Ultimate
she's,
gardener.
Yeah. She.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
I will hedge you to death. I will trim you. Okay, we just have to stop. Okay.
No one
We
listen
like
to
her.
Liz. Keep going.
We
No,
like her. She's
we
great.
like her.
Yeah. We like her. She's great. and she's a super badass with like.
Does she have hard bangs in this?
No.
Oh, okay.
No,
That's a
does she?
departure.
I don't think so. I can't remember.
Normally,
now.
she's got a strong bang story happening.
Well, she can pull off a bang.
She wears tank tops a lot. That's all I
Yeah, there's a lot of
tank top.
Yeah, she's in really good shape,
Yeah,
and she's a fighting badass with a mysterious past. And
Wait, didn't we? I think we heard. Isn't she Scargiver? Didn't when they showed up later?
They were like, we found the. Wait, should we even be talking about this? For people who want to watch it, we shouldn't be talking about the spoilers of. Yeah, so she's a wanted fugitive, I think, is what we're getting at. All right, so also starring as the super bad guy is Ed Schring. Is that right, John?
I mean Dario Naharis, but yeah, keep going.
Okay. Oh, I was going to get to that. Okay. I loved in this movie from 2002 called I Used to Be Famous, which is also available on Netflix.
Might have been 2022.
Oh, did I say 2002?
Yes, but that movie is the best, and the music is the best, and the story is the best, and everything's the best about it.
It's really, really good. Okay, so that's called I Used to Be Famous, and he stars in it. And he's not a terrible, mean character in that, which he is a terrible, mean character in this. So be ready for some meanness.
He does a lot of back and forth because he was the villain in that first Deadpool. So he does villains, occasionally.
Yeah, when I was looking him up and it said Deadpool, I'm like, can't remember him from that. I only have this I Used to Be Famous in my head for him.
I think he would appreciate that.
I think he would. So he's great in this. He's very scary, though, and mean and terrible.
Okay, so are you going to get to the Dario Naharis crossover?
Yes, but then you can't get to the crossover part until you first say who that. Fine, John, you do it. You do it.
Obviously, you're guiding this, and I'm having nothing to do with it.
There is additionally in this movie, he's a Dutch actor, which some people might recognize him from Game of Thrones, where he played Dario Naharis.
He was the replacement of Ed Skrein.
He was the replacement, so that's kind of weird that they're both in this movie. But sorry, his name is McKean Houseman. You can't say Michael, even he says McKean Houseman because he's Dutch. So that's why it was important to say that he's Dutch, because I was about to say his name very weirdly. I mean, not weirdly, but like if you look how it's spelled, it just looks like, how is that not just Michael, right? That's not. McKean is what he says. McKean.
Great job. I didn't know that, but now I do, and I really appreciate it because I like him a lot. I've seen him in a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I looked him up, and my very favorite is when the person says their name. And then you're like,
for pronunciation?
Yes.
Got it.
And was this in the Guernsey Library and Potato Peel Society? Because that's your favorite movie.
What are you talking about?
It was just a crazy movie that it was like a normal.
What was the title again?
I believe it is the Guernsey Library and Potato Peel Society.
Wow. No. Yeah. I don't know him from that.
You missed that?
I should see it.
It's fun. It's fine.
That's one of those things like, they're always saying testing audiences and this. That was run by nobody. There's no way.
Here's the deal. It was already a best-selling book, and I'm getting it wrong because it's the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Society.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, wait, now I do remember that. Yeah. It was like old ladies.
Oh my gosh, last thing. The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Is it old ladies?
Somewhat.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember it vaguely now. But now I'm intrigued.
Yeah, and apparently the potato peel pie is super gross. That's part of the joke.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
Ooh,
well,
ew,
he recently was in The Flight Attendant with Kaylee Cuoco. So that's where I was like, oh, yeah, I feel like I just saw you in something, and it was that. All right, and we've covered that he had this crossover in Game of Thrones, which is very strange. And John, when we were talking about this earlier, was like, I wonder if they talked about it. Like, you played this character for 3 episodes, and then I played him for like 18. That was weird. All right.
I bet they did talk about it. Yeah. I mean, how could you not?
Yeah. Okay. So did you guys have anything you wanted to add on this Rebel Moon? Thoughts, concerns, excited for part 2?
I'm excited for part 2. It's just going to be rewatching part 1 and part 2 all over again.
You're very good about a rewatch in preparation for the next thing.
It's about being informed as to what the storyteller or the director really wanted you to pay attention to. It's essentially, they don't make previously on for the previous movies, and I'm very used to that in our television experience.
True.
Oh, wait. that's what's important from the last episode.
Yeah.
I was paying attention to other characters, but that person, that argument is coming up in this episode. Got it. That's why I watch the old ones, so that I get all that payoff when they actually do refer back to stuff.
Yeah.
So you need the Star Wars crawl at the beginning just to reset. Okay.
I do love a recap. Just give me a recap. I can't remember what's happened.
I like a recap or skip intro. Let me decide if I want to watch the recap.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so last for me, I finally saw Barbie.
Oh, okay.
It took a while because I could not get myself out to the theater, and then it was sort of like, whoops, I really missed the pink boat and the pink jet ski and the pink tandem bike.
3 months later, you missed it.
I know. What? Well, I mean, it's not that much.
So where did you watch it? Because it's out of the theaters now.
It is currently available on Max.
Okay,
so
got
it was on HBO, and I was clicking by, and I'm like, no, Katherine, don't watch this from the middle. So I very
got
skillfully
it.
turned the channel and didn't watch it from the middle because I was like, no, I need to like do it right. And then I was like, but obviously now it's available because if it's on HBO, then that means it's available on Max, the app, or the streaming service, or usually that's how it works. Once a movie is on HBO, and then I can watch it on Max. So I watched it on Max by myself. Sarah did start it with me, and then she got a headache and left. So I do a lot of like start with someone, and then oops, I have to finish it by myself. Okay, so I mean, it did not disappoint. I'm not sure if I knew exactly what I expected the movie to be because there was tons of press about it, but I didn't really fully get. I'm like, oh, it's
the
Barbie.
concept.
Yeah, Barbie's going to come into the real world. Why and how and all of that, I didn't know. And then I didn't fully get what was going to happen with the Kens. Turn it into like some real woo. The Kens went off the ranch with their whole obsession with horses was hysterical.
Well, they love the patriarchy. Unless it doesn't include horses.
I mean, that whole thing was so funny. Yeah, so Margot Robbie, amazing. I had thought she was going to be good, and then she was really heartbreaking in certain moments, just so fantastic. Ryan Gosling was comically ridiculous and fantastic.
Like, I don't know if he's going to be nominated for an Oscar.
But he kind of should be.
He should be. I mean, that was one of those performances you're like, I don't know what kind of movie this would have been without him.
Yeah, if he couldn't have pulled that off the way he did.
Yeah.
It really was amazing.
I can't think of any other actors' performances, like not contemporary to him, and for sure not any of his contemporaries, but I can't think of another performance that is like, that fed the narrative and the plot and didn't take away from anything in a way that still highlighted himself. I can't replace him in my head with anyone else trying that and not making it a little bit of their own spotlight.
So he really kenned it?
He kenned all the way to the beach for me.
I'm sorry, no, he had Kenergy.
So much Kenergy.
There was a People article that came out recently that Dan Levy from Schitt's Creek was offered Ken. It is impossible to envision him as Ken after seeing Ryan Gosling in that role. And now listen, there were multiple Kens who were all fantastic in it, but
Well, maybe that was it. Maybe he was going to be a different Ken.
maybe
Because that's what it was.
Wasn't
There were
gonna
so
be
many Kens.
Yeah,
He wasn't going to be Alan.
well, the funny thing
Actually,
is,
that would have been amazing.
yeah, the other Alan they talked about was Jonathan Groff. But then the three Kens that they often list, Bowen Yang, Ben Platt, and Dan Levy, they kind of have Alan energy. I don't know.
Oh, that's
yeah, they don't
interesting.
have the Kenergy to me. They could not, because there was something about.
But I would have accepted them as any of the myriad other
for
Kens.
sure.
Hi, Ken.
So many Kens. In fact, let me just call out the Kens that, like, for me were just like, also, I didn't fully get that that's what they were going to do. That it's like, you just have all these different Kens and they're also going to, like, be super good friends, but then also have a fight. And, like, the whole I'm Just Ken song sequence was, first of all, much longer than I thought it was going to be. It like had multiple parts and just went on and on.
That was produced by Mark Ronson, and he's not going to F around. Like, that was, he took it seriously.
Well,
and
yeah,
it's genius.
Did you hear that story? Like, apparently, so they've been working with Barbie, with Greta Gerwig for a while, and like all these other artists, and he's also going to maybe write some songs. And he had some idea. He was out in New York City and walking around. That line came to him: "I'm Ken. Anywhere else, I'd be a 10." Yeah, you should write a song about that. Good job.
Wow. Yeah.
I do want to say that for me, that song kind of harkens back to the Muppet movie. Am I a Muppet or a Man? It was like really like that's the whole movie right there. You nailed it with that.
Because it's existential.
Yeah.
Like, who am I?
What's going on?
I'm just Ken.
Am I a Ken or a man?
Yeah.
Actually,
yeah.
Ed.
Yeah.
I
wow.
wonder, Mark Ronson.
Interesting.
Oh, okay.
And very existential too, the Billie Eilish song for the end, like, what am I here for? What am I made for?
Yeah.
I mean, wow. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's really the core of the movie, which was so smart that it was so deep underneath this shiny layer.
What was I made for?
What was I made for?
What
Thank
was
you.
I made?
And just going back to the very beginning opening with, the caveman mentality of the baby dolls.
Which is really historically accurate, that's what
Well,
happened.
This is what I got to give Greta and Noah,
Baumbach,
her writing partner and partner in life, and Mattel. Kudos to a corporation getting
Yeah.
on board for going, you can sort of poke fun at us, use our history, use our archives, because who the hell knew Alan even existed? And then some of the other characters that they would, what was the one man, was it Midge?
the pregnant one? What I think is so amazing about Midge is that's director Emerald Fennell, who just did Saltburn. Because she's an actress and has done a bunch of stuff as an actress, but I love that.
I thought we discontinued her.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so great. So that's Mattel. I got to give them kudos.
Yeah.
Of going, you know what? To reinvent the Barbie brand, to have new eyes on it, but to pay homage to it.
Yeah.
This was such a awesome balance that the chord they struck. So you were going back to the Kens that you liked.
Okay, so sorry. Yeah.
Beyond the awesome, Ryan Gosling.
Yes. Okay. So it was Simu Liu.
Oh, his arch rival.
Which he was so good. And I just love that, like, the seriousness of it. All the Kens did such a great job of being so serious when being so ridiculous. And then Scott Evans, who is Chris Evans' brother, was in there, who was really good. He was one of the main core Kens. And then John Cena showing up as a mermaid Ken or mer Ken.
Okay, did you hear the backstory on that?
No.
So basically, he was desperate to be in the film.
What?
And listen, you got to give John Cena, I'm sure he has a course on life, life coaching, empowerment, follow your dreams, because he asks for stuff. And because in life, what's the worst someone can say? No. So supposedly he's like, I want to be part of this film so badly. And he might have been on the lot doing something else. So he, the energy probably around Barbie was awesome. So he's just like, how do I get in there?
Well, nice
And
that
he
it's got a
showed
big,
up.
wide cast, too, so you can put people in it.
So it's basically like, actually, you know what? Would you be a mercan? It's a one-day shoot. You're basically just going to pop up and say, hi, Barbie.
wear a goofy wig.
Do your best Fabio impression. I'm in. I'm
Yeah,
in. I'm doing it.
100%.
Yes.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And
I
kind
would
of
like
stole that little moment.
Yeah.
I would like to say there are some things I would like to buy from that movie. I would buy the current Alan. I would buy the Merman.
Yeah.
Like Barbie versions of those.
They're
I want
great.
a John Cena Merman.
Yeah, you
doll
wonder.
edition.
Yeah,
Make that.
is Mattel
Get-
gonna put out
get
a
your
line
next
of-
billion, guys?
Yeah, they should.
We grew up in the era of Barbie, although we weren't allowed to have them. That's another story for another time. But, it was one of those things where you're like,
Is this based on something real? Yeah.
you're like, Alan could not have been real. I mean, who in the marketing development team thought Alan? I mean, poor Alan. Now that's
I
the
have a
name.
guess. If we looked, it's probably a guy named Alan.
Ba, 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 ba. Well, yes. So shout out to Michael Cera, who played Alan, who was delightful. Like, he was so sweet, and like you just were like, oh, Alan. And I forget who said it, but especially when they're like all in their pink jumpsuits and Alan's in a pink jumpsuit, he's like, he's with the girls and he's just trying to help. And it's like, yeah, because he's not in this Kenergy misogynistic grossness. He was amazing. He was amazing. So the last little thing that we should mention, Will Ferrell and Rhea Perlman within the world of Mattel. That's
Right.
sort of what you're talking about, that they were really willing to be like, no, we can have a goofy bad CEO of Mattel. Oh, we can actually pay homage to, in Rita Perlman's character, the creator and founder of Mattel, Ruth Handler. I mean, like, genius. I thought that was so good.
Some people had different expectations when the actual movie came out and they were going and they thought this was going to be, I don't know, all pink bubble gum, plastic cars.
Yeah, because it's got a pretty deep message.
Right. And the
underneath
deeper
that.
message. But there were times it was told, even through Will Ferrell's character with his, board of all men.
All
in
men.
suits. I mean, there were truly moments of like self-reflection.
Yeah.
That you were like, oh. And like I said, that Mattel let that happen.
Absolutely.
And probably was based on accurate history, was pretty brilliant.
Well, speaking of your accurate history, were you going to mention about like at the end when they showed a lot of the like
So I was like,
photos?
Alan does not exist. I do remember Midge for some weird reason. I remember there being a pregnant Barbie and being
I
like,
remember the Barbie that her boobs grew too. Not the one
That
with the TV
was
in the
so
back.
weird.
But the Barbie with the boobs. Yeah.
This is why her mother was like, you're not allowed Barbies.
what?
Like all these weird things. But, it was like the pregnant girl, you're like, okay. And it was just one of those odd things where you're like, Alan, like Alan could not exist. And when they started to show all the different
Original packaging.
Oh my gosh. Listen, there were ones, and I understand people still even have. Didn't your husband buy your daughter some Barbies at one point that were like the big glamorous ones?
Yeah. Oh yeah. She has a
Like
couple
in the Bob
glamour
Mackie,
Barbies,
like
yeah.
don't open those. Like
Yeah.
it's in a Bob Mackie dress. I still would want one of those. Those are so glamorous.
Yeah.
But just the history of Barbie, watching it and how it's pivoted through the years. Like I've told the story on our other Family Dynamics podcast. I just wanted the bust where it was just the head of her.
Where you
and
do the
that
hair and the makeup, yeah.
Yes, because what most people end up doing with those is they would color her and make her completely wacko because it was a borderline real life head. Then the Barbie played by Kate McKinnon,
Weird Barbie.
doing the splits
Oh, just
and
everywhere.
painted.
Yeah.
Like there was just moments with her. She can do a crazy eye.
Oh, she's
It's really
so
hard
good.
focused on you, and so. I just thought there was even the supporting cast was just fantastic, and it looks like that's one of the ones you can tell like that was just good fun energy when they were in Venice in their rollerblading outfits. Then they had to get into regular clothes, and they came out of their regular clothes. I mean,
Those cowboy outfits.
and
you're
Ryan
like, what?
Gosling, you know what it was? He never winked at the camera.
No.
He literally
He was
did it with
serious.
such conviction that you just like, oh my gosh, you're like, God, Barbie, why don't you like him? And I like it because we were sold the narrative our entire childhood. And that's one of those things I say, Mattel allowed them to go, actually, Ken and Barbie really aren't together. Or she's really not that into him. I mean, that was shocking because our entire life was basically Ken and Barbie
Yeah.
and Ken, like that. They're together. They're like, she's like, no, why would you want to spend the night?
Oh my God,
no,
it's
we're
so
boyfriend,
good.
girlfriend. Are we? Like,
What does that mean?
That was shocking that they went that direction. And it just, like I said, come on, Academy. I don't know who's behind this, but make it happen.
Well,
right?
we'll see.
I did like an interview moment I saw of Ryan Gosling's where he said, there are no other Ken roles to research this with. There's no place to go hang out with other Kens to find a Ken. There's no like documentaries about being Ken. I had to figure it all out myself.
He nailed it.
He nailed it. Well, yeah. So some of the other Barbies, you mentioned Kate McKinnon as Weird Barbie. Amazing. I loved Alexandra Shipp as I guess she was writer Barbie, which I like that they all had like different little monikers or like what their job was.
Right.
Issa Rae as President Barbie was fantastic. Loved her energy. Emerald Fennell as Midge, the pregnant Barbie, which technically not a pregnant Barbie. She's just Midge. It's a different thing. And then Dua Lipa as the mermaid Barbie. All of that was amazing.
And Dua Lipa provided that great song.
Oh,
dance
that's
the night away.
That was such a great sequence.
Yeah.
That dance sequence.
Yeah, because you're having a dance party tonight.
With bespoke songs and oh my God,
I went
amazing.
looking immediately for the soundtrack and was disappointed to find that the in-movie iterations and different lyrics of like the opening where she's like, yeah, it's a great day. Uh-oh, there goes the lemonade. What happened now? Whoa, you all right, girl? When she like falls off the roof.
Oh, uh-huh.
That's not available on the soundtrack.
Oh, no.
That's the only one I want to listen to now.
Oh, the in-movie use of
Just
it.
to say, one of the things about Mattel, like they just came out with a like Hollywood for Barbies. And there's still lessons to be learned. It was like the executive, the star, and it was like the director. And like the one thing they did not have was the writer.
Oh, no.
So you're like, okay. But but on the other flip side, one of my good friends from high school, Kara Walsh, her daughter, Mia Armstrong is her name, and she's had a book come out on Amazon. She is a spokesperson for the Down syndrome Barbie that came out with about the last
that's
year.
cool.
Yeah. So it's like, listen, Barbie has expanded with body image, different types, everything. And so the diversity, they're trying to incorporate it, but there's still, I just have to laugh because we're writers. I'm like, I don't know. You're doing a Hollywood package. The writer is kind of important, but yeah, it's like, I don't know. Would she have pen and paper, like with a computer pad? Like, probably like, oh God, boring.
Oh my God, how funny.
There is a fifth one. You didn't see that? It's a much smaller package. She's a little hunched over. She's got glasses.
How stereotypical. What are you saying? Stop.
She's really like, oh shit, I spelled that wrong.
Oh my goodness.
The last shout out about the movie that I want to make is there were 3 actors from a series I love, Sex Education.
Oh.
So we had the new Doctor Who. Ncuti Gatwa was one of the Kens. We had Emma Mackey, who was one of the Barbies. And then the guy working at Mattel, who's the first one to notice that it's all going wrong, is Connor Swindle, who is, I mean, for me, to like see these 3 from Sex Education in this movie was kind of magical.
It probably means either the casting director likes Sex Education or Greta did. I mean, to pull 3 actors from a series, there's an agent, there's somebody involved, somebody's making it happen. That's an interesting coincidence.
Wait, they didn't do a group audition?
They might have.
Although I do think maybe how this sort of came about is that there is a longstanding within the internet community a comparison between Margot Robbie and Emma Mackey, that they look very similar. So they could have, been more aware of Sex Education because of that. And then, it's a great show and it's a great cast, and I love that they pulled people in from it.
And vice versa. I've heard interviews of Margot Robbie saying, meeting people that are like, we loved you on Sex Education. She's like, yep.
That's not me. Yeah, they do look very similar. If you see side by side, it's kind of like a trick that people do, like put their pictures side by side and like, which one's which, Margot or Emma? Like, Anyway, it's funny. But so I finally saw Barbie and I loved it. I mean, not a controversial opinion.
No, $1 billion+ at the box office.
People seem to have enjoyed it.
Yes.
And I agree.
Yes.
Okay, so Liz, what do you got?
I watched on Netflix Dan Levy's Good Grief.
Oh, I watched it too.
So I love Dan Levy from Schitt's Creek. A lot of people know him. David.
Yeah.
So he wrote, directed, and starred in this. Probably also his production company, I would assume. But
yeah, I think so.
All of it.
It's a movie.
Yeah, it's a movie. It came out right around the holidays. Definitely there's a Christmas theme throughout it. And listen, it's in the title, so there's no spoiler alerts. All right, Good Grief. It's about grief. Mm-hmm. So someone has to die in the first couple scenes, we got to get this going. And it's almost like nerve-wracking, the first scene, because who's going to die. It's the character Luke Evans. It's in all the trailers. Like I said, I'm not spoiling anything.
No, but you're right. I wish there's no way to not know, but that whole first sequence. Oh my gosh! I thought he was gonna die and have a heart attack, which he doesn't. So that's a little bit of a spoiler.
He looked very raw. Sorry, Luke Evans. I really do like you as an actor.
Super handsome.
Played Gaston in Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, the live action.
He's a great actor, and I love him. So, but there was something about him, he was so amped up with so much energy.
I was very
nervous. So taut. I was like, is gonna drop dead.
As a spoiler, this is the spoiler I would have wanted. I wanted someone to say, just relax. Enjoy this whole first sequence because he's not going to die now.
We're going to do it for you because the first sequence is lovely. It is on Christmas theme. They sing a Christmas carol I have never freaking heard of before. But they are not in America. It's in London.
England. Yeah.
So maybe it's that's the reason. But just enjoy it. Enjoy the Christmas festivities in the sing-along that they're having. But then it goes very quickly awry. It jumps in time a bit. We do go to the funeral, and there's a funny sequence.
Right, just to clarify, Luke Evans is Dan Levy's husband.
Yes.
And that's,
that's
going
who
through
dies.
The grieving process of losing his husband.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they seem just like the most perfect couple, very happy and in love, and great group of friends, and just everything's going for them. They just redid their kitchen. So everything's happening. And
they're in the music, literary, art world. This friend group.
Everything's great. Mm-hmm. So, that's what happens in life, Everything's going great, and then it sideswipes you.
Yeah. Oh, Liz.
So, anyways. Listen, it was a quiet story of grief. And if you're expecting the Dan Levy of Schitt's Creek or even some of the other things he's done where it's sort of over the top or
a little bit bigger,
that's not what's happening here. It is an adult view of grief that is complicated because something happens after the fact that changes the view of his relationship with his now deceased husband. So that has an impact.
Yeah, complications.
There was never, even that moment wasn't a big, huge moment. There was never a big moment. It was a very steady paced looking at how one grieves really in their first year, basically. Yeah. And, some of the stuff you have to deal with and face and handle, and he leaned very much on his friends. His friends were his family. We did not really get to know any of Dan Levy's family. Luke Evans' father was played by David Bradley. A lot of you know him from Games of Thrones. And Harry Potter.
Yeah, Filch from Harry Potter.
Listen,
he was so good.
Yeah, he nailed sort of the one substantial scene he had.
Yeah.
There were great supporting cast. Ruth Negga. A really sort of doesn't have her shit together friend. And her arc is interesting. And then you kind of almost immediately, Dan Levy's best friend was played by Hamish Patel.
Oh, I love him so much. Can I just really quick?
Yeah.
Hamish Patel was in Station 11, which is available on Max. Great limited series. And then also the movie Yesterday.
That's fantastic, that movie.
Where he just embodies the Beatles because nobody remembers that they even happened.
He's a glitch in the universe, and he's able to take.
He remembers the Beatles, and
no one else does.
Just that, I love that movie. I love that movie. Anyway, so Hamish Patel, he's fantastic, and he was one of the trio of this tight friendship that supports after the death.
And one of the things about death is there is business logistics. Dan Levy drove me somewhat crazy in this. He didn't really want to deal with them.
Yeah.
And there are times dude, because his lawyer,
she's so good.
Celia Amiri, fantastic. Older woman. She has a beautiful sort of wake up moment to him. You don't want to be alone or to wallow in it or to move on. And they did a close up on her face, which as a woman of a certain age, it's I appreciate it. It's and she owned it and was beautiful in that moment.
She's great. She was in the Best Exotic Marigold Hotel. And then also she is was in the series Better Things, which was that Pamela Adlon FX series. She plays Pamela's character's mom. She's fantastic. I mean, you'd recognize her, I think, just from a bunch of different things,
right.
But those are a couple of the little standout things for me.
Yeah, so I'll say, it's a quiet, steady pace story of what grief is. And, there are not really big laughs, but, it reminds me a little bit of it had moments of a little bit of Love Actually, but then didn't have necessarily the balance of the lightness. But there's so much Christmas in it. I don't know if people want to watch at Christmas. It's not depressing. It's just.
I didn't think it'd have that much Christmas. Well, I mean, still.
I felt like it was a lot.
Okay.
But yeah, and listen, I give it to you, Dan. Set something in London and Paris.
I was just going to joke about that. I was like, that is genius. He's the only American. Did you notice that? But he's like, no, I'm going to write something where we're in London and then I take my friends to Paris and we hang out and go and do museums and
drink
all that.
Wine and yeah, perfect.
And I guess it was because it was the holidays. The amount of lights up and down the various amazing
they're called
streets.
fairy lights in London because we had a brother
or
lived
in Paris,
both
up and down,
because it's really it's white twinkle lights here, but we had a brother that lived in London for quite a while, and that's I guess what they call them there.
Fairy lights.
Yes,
okay.
So just fabulous.
It looked magical.
Yep. So good grief. So the other thing I want to hit upon also on Netflix was Painkiller.
Oh yeah, I watched Painkiller.
It's the story of the Sackler family.
Right. It's a limited series. I think it was six episodes.
Yeah. It's really about OxyContin and the epidemic. I mean, the addiction that it basically overtook America. It's a very tonally odd.
Yeah, they did a really interesting thing. So it's Matthew Broderick.
Plays the lead of who is Richard Sackler.
Who is sort of credited with figuring out how to make OxyContin and then how to market it. And within this storytelling, they are very brutal about how brutal he was. That he was he did not care that it was maybe gonna get...
Maybe. They
knew that this could be abused and they didn't care because they knew it was gonna make them so much money.
The Sackler family had long been in pharmaceuticals to some degree, but had fallen on hard times. And Arthur Sackler, who was the patriarch of the family.
Right. They basically had to liquidate everything except they kept Purdue Pharma.
Right.
And then it was like Richard Sackler was pushing to turn it into something big to save all of the money of the family. Because the whole family was very used to being rich and didn't want to not be rich anymore.
Right. They were used to having their names on sides of buildings and sponsoring museums and being some of, what our generation was of forefathers of our generation. Not as far back as the Gilded Age, but...
Well, it was interesting because the tone stuff that you're talking about, it was really inventive. So the character of Arthur Sackler, who is now deceased, but really the patriarch of this whole empire, is played by Clark Craig. And he is genius and brilliant, but it's very weird because it's like Matthew Broderick is talking to him, like having almost like, and there's no way that we could know if this was happening. It's just a creative license thing that they did. So yeah, that was really interesting. But you get a lot of the history also of Arthur Sackler, who came up with like a lobotomizing procedure, and like it was kind of alarming.
But when they
did
the
history of this,
when they did the testing on OxyContin, they ended up manipulating it to get through what is the FDA. But they knew from the very beginning it was highly, highly addictive, and had the withdrawals were horrible for people. And they showed
and the potential for abuse too. They knew that it's got a coating that makes it dissolve slowly. Oh, but what if you just smash it and snort it?
There was complete knowledge what they were putting out into the marketplace, which was basically prescription heroin. And they show different verticals. They show Richard Sackler. The two they were straight out of they were caricatures. Mortimer and Raymond Sackler.
Were they
the actors
the uncles or something?
Yes, they were so over the top. The whole Sackler vibe was so over the top.
Well, it was unforgiving, the lens that they were putting on them from the point of view of this limited series. They were just pulling no punch is going to be no, they were jerks.
Which I think is fine because that's accurate, but also just some of the acting was so insane. Then you followed a family, which, started with a back injury, couldn't work, got on this painkiller, helped, and it ends up...
It was horrible, yeah.
The way hundreds of thousands of people have ended up. There was addiction, death. It's just awful. And then you also have what was the sales force, Shannon Schaefer. And so the actress Wes Duchovny is David Duchovny.
And Téa Leoni, right?
Téa Leoni, his daughter. And really showing how an attractive woman could go into a doctor's office and be like, hey, let me give you some samples. Hey, why don't you start prescribing this as a painkiller to your patients?
And then titrate it up and keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it.
And changed, I think, the entire industry because they really used to basically woo doctors to prescribe it in a way that was so unethical that they had to change the whole industry of how you gift and treat doctors because it was basically they're overprescribing it ridiculously. Clinics just opened up just to write prescriptions for people.
Yeah, that part of the story was really
terrifying.
Yeah.
Terrifying. There was a fictionalized investigator in order to take down the Sackler family and really OxyContin and pay a settlement, which I think it's still in the courts.
Wow, crazy.
And that's a fictional character. Edie Flowers played by...
Uzo Aduba.
Yeah, which is Orange is the New Black. She brought much more of a, I would say, gravitas and realness to...
Yeah, she was super grounded. Her performance was
Thank God for it, because there really were times, there was Richard Sackler played by Matthew Broderick. They made him look slightly insane because he's talking to Arthur Sackler, who's passed away, for guidance, and he's got this fire alarm that beeps. It had to be in his head because it went, when all of us in the middle of the night when your fire alarm starts to beep and drive you crazy. This went on for years in his house.
Yeah.
And it opens up with that happening and you're like, so this has to be in his head because otherwise or is that what's driving you crazy? I don't know. He's got this huge obnoxious dog. It was really over the top.
Which interestingly, Matthew Broderick was so good. Really unlikable, really
despicable.
He was very, very good.
The other character I want to bring up is the character of Glenn Taylor Kish. He is the story of what
the family,
probably millions of people that got just injured, went in, got a prescription, and unfortunately for him, it led to addiction and the devastating ripple effect that has on a family.
Yeah.
And it could have been totally avoided. So you watch it and you're outraged, and also is terrifying. But I think knowledge is power, and we'll end on this. They open up each episode because it's a limited series. So there's 6 different real life people holding up a photo of their real life family member who basically died from Oxycontin and their addiction to it or their misuse of it. And that needs to be a constant reminder of the power of that type of prescriptive drug, how it needs to be taken seriously. And it could be prescribed in the most, ethical way initially, and then what it warps into. So it just was fascinating, and it definitely was disturbing, but it is a fictionalized version. It's not a documentary, so they definitely took liberties at some point.
Yeah, some real creative storytelling was going on there.
Yeah.
But really good. And informational-wise, really frightening numbers that
there are times I would stop and go, oh my gosh, like this has been going on for like 20 years.
Yeah.
Like it's just been going on for so long to know that it has such devastating impacts to people's lives. So also he has a small part in it. Peter Berg is the director of it. And, Friday Night Lights, very accomplished director. I think he takes his subject matters very seriously, and I think it reflects that. And like I said, there were multiple storylines going on that I think he did keep good track of to show the overlapping impact.
Yeah, Peter Berg did an amazing job.
Yeah.
Yeah, his one little scene, though, was very funny because he was kind of a bit of a scumbag character, which was funny. I do want to mention that there's a really good documentary called All the Beauty and the Bloodshed that is about this.
About the Sackler family?
It's really this artist, Nan Golden, who I believe is a photographer.
Okay.
And her struggles from getting addicted and then trying to use her notoriety as an artist to bring down the Sackler family and really attacking their names being in museums and that's like blood money and that, and that's when I first, because I think it was just 2022, that documentary, so good and alarming that when you hear the numbers, and that's when I first became aware of like how terrible it was, and then this backlash fighting against the Sackler family and that some of the things that they have actually accomplished. So that's worth looking up and trying to watch.
So I'm going to throw this one out to the group because I think everyone except for you, Katherine.
What?
Watched The Creator.
We did.
True.
What's The Creator? I don't know. What is
Science fiction.
Science fiction? I've heard of that.
Yes, it's a 2-hour movie. It's available on Hulu.
Set in the future where there's not exactly AI, more like full-blown like cybernetics, like actual beings out there that are not human beings, that are digital. And then it doesn't go well. And then we're in the substantial long-term aftermath of it not going well.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Yeah, it starts with AI setting off a nuclear bomb that basically destroys Los Angeles.
Jeez, rude. AI, don't do that.
I know. And now we're having to fight AI. And listen, except for this like big freaking hollow joint they have at the back of their head, all these, they look like human beings. So just put a hoodie on, put a scarf on, or have long hair, and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
Literally.
Yeah, I mean, sci-fi, they did some interesting things in this one where there was a whole thing where you could donate your likeness. So then it was like, people just running around with you that are robots.
That's weird.
Bad idea, people. Bad idea. It's directed by Gareth Edwards. There is potentially an AI being created or has been created that could control all intelligence on the planet, AI intelligence. So therefore, that has to be found and stopped. That's the backstory. It stars John David Washington, which is Denzel Washington's son. And there is an opening scene where he's talking, you're like, damn, he sounds like his dad.
Oh.
But, he's really found his own in Tenet. I think, he was in that as well. So he's...
And Ballers.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's doing his own thing.
He's doing his own thing, yeah. But he is the ex-military and, of course, begrudgingly and doesn't want to be brought back into the field. But he's got to be brought back in because no one else can do it. And so he's the one. He carries the film, looked beautiful. He was great. The acting was great. But my critique was sort of like, there was something just about it that just felt like, should we started where this ended?
Oh. Mm-hmm.
It was a bit in the middle of the story. Like, that's what you're saying. So, like, we're trying to, like, get up to speed with the world and what's happening and how did it go this way and whose side are we on and what's the right side of that. And then, okay, all right, well, I could have used, like, from the point where we figured all that out, just tell me that, and then we can hang out for 2 hours.
Yeah, because, they make the AI having human attributes to it that, people have completely embraced AI, basically human-like robots into their lives. And so in a lot of ways, there's a huge set that do not want them out. But you gotta love Allison Janney in her badass era. She is gonna kill them all. I mean, she's, what was that film that we reviewed like about a year ago where she was an assassin?
Oh, yeah, and it was raining all the time.
Oh, my God. So she has decided...
Was it some survival? Like, I'm
Yes.
saving this one kid, but there's no aliens to fight?
But now she's hunting this one kid. So, she's in her badass era and, she just embraces it. And, basically John David Washington, also because he was in love with this rebel played by Gemma Chan, he is torn because that has gone awry. And when he discovers this, I don't want to blow up for anybody, but it's very smart what they do. This potential weapon is put into the guise of something so innocent. Therefore, how can you kill it or destroy it? It was like, can we speed up the power of that weapon, that insane AI? Because it was like there was not that much. I mean, it was like, come on.
For an AI, it wasn't very smart to let that develop at the speed of a child. No, you plug that thing in and have that go 10 times faster, and it's a grown-ass adult in a week. Thank you.
Yeah, something along those lines. Yeah, so I wish this was more like Rebel Moon that we talked about earlier in this podcast, where it was going to come back. Because
more action.
I also just felt like it left us at a place like, well, what now? Like, that's the end? What? Like, to me, it's like it was just getting started. So that's my only critique. Otherwise, I think it was, it's also from the director of Rogue One, which John and I are huge fans of Rogue One. That's one of my favorites of the spin-offs. There's been so much of that in the Star Wars world lately, in the sagas. So I thought it was beautifully shot. The special effects were fantastic, which now, John, when I think about Rogue One, I mean, basically that ended, which you're like, well, now what? And we do know, actually, but...
Well, yeah, I was thinking because it's an interesting correlation because both of these movies are like, oh, this giant story, but really you're kind of following a small story of this character on this journey. And it worked better in Rogue One. I still think it worked very well in The Creator. Look, I mean, it wasn't a huge box office success, so there's a benchmark for this criticism. But
I'll also give, because it was actually in the theaters. But for how long? That's, there's not a lot of breadth where it goes from box office to streaming. So your box office benchmark, unless you're like a Barbie or an Oppenheimer and you're going to bust it out and be able to be there for like a month plus or 2 months. Like, how much box office are you able to do if you're in under a month in a box office? So, I mean, I did watch it on streaming. I did not until I did some research and we're like, box office? Oh, it was in the theaters first. Okay. But I will say this for any sci-fi lover, I do think it's worth watching. Check it out. It's on Hulu. I'm only going to mention one more thing as the short shout out. Then I'll give a disclaimer. It's Jeff Lewis, known from Flipping Out on Bravo. And maybe you listen to him on Sirius Radio. I also work with him and he's my friend. But he has a show called Hollywood House Lift on Amazon's Freevee. And he basically goes in and redoes an area, a room, a section of a celebrity's home. And he is Jeff. So he's blunt and there are awkward moments and you get to see him with his staff and with also the celebrity. And it is like when he walks in and decides that the celebrity's a hoarder, he just, he can't stop himself from saying something or someone has bad taste.
That's very Jeff.
Yeah. And then, he's getting in fights with his staff or being annoyed. And it's just... He is one of life's, I think, best reality stars that we've all been blessed with because
he's a fantastic personality.
He just can't not be himself.
No, correct.
Even if he knows he's about to blow up something, you can see the wheels turning like, don't say it, don't say it, don't say it, and he says it. So
there's something very authentic about his unabashed, just like opinionated and willing to say it. Yeah.
So I recommend it. I'm all caught up on it, but they're only doing it every week. It's not something you can watch all the episodes at once.
Interesting.
But most of them are up now. So Hollywood House Lift on Amazon Freevee.
Love it.
Yeah.
I'll jump in here. I mean, I think it's a little late on the whole medicine documentary stuff that you're talking about, but I do think that laughter is the best medicine. So I watched some very recent stand-ups.
Oh,
okay.
Like 3 of the most recent stand-ups, the Ricky Gervais special, Armageddon, and the Dave Chappelle special, The Dreamer, both of which did not bring the laughter. So I'm going with one that I thought was the funniest, the Pete Davidson special, Turbo Fonzarelli.
Turbo Fonzarelli?
Which usually I can pinpoint where that came from, and I think I got the Fonzarelli part, but I did not catch the Turbo part. However, it was interesting because it was in black and white, and so that kind of like put you just in a weird storytelling spot where you weren't really like waiting for him to do characters or performances, and he's done a lot of stuff on SNL. So you got to like listen to his stories, and they were like personal anecdotes of his friends and stuff that they used to do together when he was younger, or his mom and his aunt and those stories. So it really was easier to get in and listen and enjoy him telling these stories and having a fun time telling them. So I would recommend that. And that is on Netflix. It's his second special.
I love Pete Davidson.
He's great.
You just root for him, basically.
Yeah. And I love that he is willing to share so much of the hard stuff that he's gone through.
Oh.
And it reminded me of the stand-up special from earlier last year, John Mulaney's special. He goes into all the bad stuff that's been happening to him and that he had to deal with and that he had to like get on top of.
Oh, facing rehab and his
all that
drug
kind of stuff.
addiction.
And like just being surrounded by a bunch of people that are maybe 70% of the way there to him. So he's like, really? You're here? That was a great special. But this most recent one from Pete Davidson is very enjoyable, and I'd recommend watching it.
Oh, okay, good.
So the other thing that I wanted to bring, because I feel like that was a little short on the review duration.
Wait,
I might need to bring more
be out
than
of
one
proportion to
with the two of
Katherine?
you. Yeah, I need to bring at least more than one, and since I'm not really talking about the rest of those comedy specials, I thought I'd bring a very, very recent watch, The Holdovers. I don't know if anybody else has watched that.
Yes.
Oh, nice. All right.
Oh, John, okay.
The movie.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah, the movie
yeah.
The Holdovers, available on Peacock right now. Possibly still in theaters. I think it said still in theaters. That was fantastic. I mean, I really enjoyed it.
That's the buzz, yeah.
It is from 2023, just last December, but it feels like it was made in 1970 when it's set, the era that it's set in.
Oh, like
It's
super authentic?
visually like set in the right style and the same flavor as films, because I've watched a lot of movies from that era, and they're not like putting you in the moment with the actors where there's all this like light frantic camera movement. It was very static. You could actually just pay attention to the story and the characters and let it build and actually like tell you the story that they're trying to tell you. Paul Giamatti's character is great. One of the bits is he's kind of got a wandering, like a lazy eye, not a wandering eye, like he's looking around at ladies. No, like an eye that's just off. And so it's a little challenging to
Literally.
like stay on it the whole time. But it kept me engaged in the movie because that's I think it was just a contact that's like slightly askew, so it always looks off. But it was really good. It was really an enjoyable performance. As far as like the soundtrack, it never really felt like it pulled anything too current, and the actual score it can be jarring sometimes when I catch a synthesized score that's supposed to be a full orchestra, and you're like, that is a keyboard, and those are not real horns. Nice try, though. This was like a guitar and a piano. All the score was real. You could tell it was like in the same era of that style of filmmaking where, this is a small story. It's set at a college campus basically the entire time during a break. So there's no need for like a big orchestration and a big movement and feeling. You got that a lot from the actual performances and acting.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, no, it's a great movie. It's kind of interesting because it's partially coming of age of this high school student, but then as far as Paul Giamatti, it's really kind of like a slice of life for him. There's not as much conflict as you would expect, and some of the blow-ups don't blow up as much as you think they're going to, but it's really an amazing, like, wow, if these characters were all together on the holdover for Christmas, it feels like this is what would happen. Yeah, in addition, the co-star, Divine Joy Randolph, is fantastic.
Oh my God, I love her.
She's already won a Golden Globe for that role.
I did hear an interview or something. She is the cook of the school and frequently underappreciated, but then when, the three people barely are there together, it's like, well, now you're all of a sudden getting to know her a lot better. Apparently she said, well, if I'm going to be the cook and you want me to be in the kitchen, you're going to film things in there, I'm going to be cooking things I know how to cook. It's all going to be real. It was
amazing.
I mean,
wow.
I don't, I found that out after, and I wouldn't have really been able to tell watching it for the first time, but I'm sure when she's in there, it looks real, so it's because it is real.
She's so awesome. She was in one of my very favorite shows, People of Earth. I love her, love her, love her. She was also in that movie recently with Daniel Radcliffe, The Lost City.
Oh, with Sandra Bullock.
Yes, with Sandra Bullock. Oh, she was so
She
great.
plays
She was the
Sandra
agent or whatever, yeah. Oh,
Who's
she's so
going to
great.
save the day.
I'm getting on this plane.
I love her. I love her.
She was also in The Idol, and she has a fantastic story arc in that.
Oh,
She's
great.
great. She's a scene stealer, in my opinion.
Good
it's
for her.
supporting, but doesn't feel like supporting because she takes up the screen.
Something I also didn't know until we just looked this up. Apparently, this New England movie is also a bit of a Wahlburger because there's a Wahlberg in there that I didn't realize.
Oh.
Really?
Yeah, he plays a character that's, set up a small moment of conflict. So he doesn't seem that nice. Robert Wahlberg's son, Oscar.
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
Like
There
in
you go.
Danny Wahlberg?
Okay, so not Danny, Robert Wahlberg. Another Wahlberg.
How many Wahlbergs are there? Are there a lot? What's going on?
So, like, he's related to Mark Wahlberg?
Yes, that would be his uncle, yes.
I mean, this took place in Boston, right, though?
Well, no, it's kind of an undetermined New England situation.
All right.
They go into Boston.
Yes.
That's what the city thinks. So they're obviously outside of Boston. Whether they're in Massachusetts is slightly unclear.
They're driving distance.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Alexander Payne has a long history going back 20 years to one of the great independent films, Sideways, with Paul Giamatti,
Oh,
which
well, yeah.
really, I think the first time people, because he was a character actor in New York doing theater, one of the first times that on a big scale Paul Giamatti got noticed was the Howard Stern film, WNBC. But then the star turning role of a leading man, Sideways.
yeah.
I mean, I just recently was somewhere where people was quoting it from because I was on a wine weekend, so it was like Merlot, just
I'm not going to drink any Merlot.
just all of it's so great. And then you're looking at Spit Bucket, you're like, how did he? But so they obviously have a long history with each other, and I love that Paul Giamatti's gained so much recognition for this role.
yeah.
The nomination probably will come for the Oscar. He's up against steady competition this year, so who knows? But he did win a Golden Globe for his performance as well. So it's on my list.
Yes, mine as well.
There you go.
all right. And that's all I brought this week.
All right. Cool. John.
Okay, so then it's me. So I watched a movie called Dream Scenario.
Dream Scenario. I don't know it. Tell us more.
Well, perhaps you've missed it amongst the many Nicolas Cage movies.
Oh, Nicolas Cage. Okay.
But this one is, it's one of this new crop of kind of strange, independent, like, what is this story that's happening? This mild-mannered biology professor starts showing up in people's dreams.
Okay.
It becomes a countrywide, I don't know if they say worldwide, phenomenon. Like thousands of people, he's in their dreams. It's funny, it starts out, he's very innocuous. He's like an observer, and he's not doing very much.
gosh.
Which kind of aligns, it's funny because once he finds out about it, he's like, well, what did I do? And they're like, not very much. He's like, It's like,
What,
well,
in the dream? He's
yes.
just kind of an observer, like
Yes.
not super active? Oh, that's funny.
yes.
Okay.
But it aligns with his mild-mannered personality. Then that takes a turn, and then he starts doing things that are not so mild-mannered, and then people are not happy about having him in his dreams. It's really...
Get this Nicolas Cage out of my dreams.
Yeah, I mean, we're also talking about it like the last quarter of the movie. The first, 20 or 30 minutes is like, okay, how mild-mannered is he? Let's find out what's going on in his life. He's teaching his classes. What's up with his wife, which is Julianne Nicholson. She's fantastic in this, as always. All right, he's got these professor friendships. Okay, Tim Meadows, who's the dean. He's great. He's not a star professor. So we really get that hammered home for a while. Apparently, it's this Norwegian director. It's his third movie. I was not aware of him. Christopher Borgli. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it. But this is quite a movie he made. It's good. It's very weird. So, also, you do get some fun cameos. The best ones are at the end. Nicholas Braun and Noah Centineo from The Recruit.
Oh.
I mean, they're hysterical because you're like, wow, why would you do that? That's so fun. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate it.
Nice.
Then in the middle, you do get, after he's almost turned into celebrity, Nicolas Cage, because he's in everybody's dreams. Everybody knows who he is. So this PR firm is like, how can we, let's help you. What are we going to do? So that's Michael Cera and Kate Berlant, and they're hysterical. I mean, look, it's not like I'm in these meetings, but it seems like, wow, yeah, you are the type of crazy PR firm, and like, what are you and what are you doing? So anyway, you should watch it then.
I'm
that's-
very intrigued. Yeah.
That's a great cast. I'd even say it's a dream scenario.
Oh, geez. Oh.
No.
Okay, well, that's plenty. So we're going to put a pin in it for now, and that'll be the end of this episode. So let's do a super quick recap. So I did Reacher Season 2. I did Rebel Moon, which other people also watched. I did finally see the Barbie movie.
Okay, and I watched on Netflix Good Grief, the Dan Levy movie, and Painkiller about the Sackler family. And then on Hulu, The Creator, and a shout out to Hollywood House Lift, which is Jeff Lewis's reality show on Amazon Freevee.
And I watched Pete Davidson's stand-up special, Turbo Fonzarelli, and The Holdovers.
And I watched Dream Scenario in the theaters, but now you can rent it digitally.
Ooh, which means you have to pay money.
Big money.
Dollars, actual dollars. Okay, so that's it for this episode, and you can follow us on all of our social media at Podcast Watching, and that's Instagram, Facebook, X, and you can watch the full episodes on our YouTube channel, which is Knack Entertainment. Okay, so that's it for this episode of
What We're Watching.
Great.